Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
This is the last time I'm asking. Why is your daughter living in my home? My mother didn't raise her voice.
She didn't need to.
Who does she think she is? God's gift. My name is Elena Brooks, and I learned that day that cruelty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it stays calm so everyone else looks unreasonable. I stood at the top of the stairs with a glass of water I hadn't touched. My aunt froze in the living room. My uncle's mouth opened, then closed. No one answered her. No one ever did. Not when she spoke like that. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I turned and walked into the bathroom and locked the door. It wasn't drama. It was survival. When people strip you down to something less than human, the worst thing you can do is react and give them proof they were right. A minute passed. Maybe two. Then I heard it. A scream. Sharp, sudden, followed by a violent crash that rattled the walls. The sound wasn't loud because of the fall. It was loud because of what it meant. I unlocked the door and stepped out just as the house collapsed into chaos. My mother lay at the bottom of the stairs. My family was on their knees around her, crying, apologizing, begging. Not to me.
To her.
I gripped the railing and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not fear. Not guilt. Understanding. Because accidents don't change families like this. But consequences do. And whatever happened on those stairs had just turned me from a problem they controlled into a truth they were terrified of facing. They didn't ask me to come down the stairs. They didn't look at me at all. Everything orbited my mother. Her breathing, her ankle twisted at a wrong angle, the way my aunt kept saying her name like a prayer she'd forgotten how to finish. An ambulance was called. Doors opened. Voices filled the house. And still, no one asked me a single question. That was familiar. I hadn't moved into my aunt's house because I was rebellious or difficult. I'd moved in because my mother needed quiet. After my dad died, grief didn't soften her. It sharpened her. I became noise she didn't want to manage. "You're adaptable," she'd said, handing my suitcase to my uncle like it weighed nothing. "You'll be fine here." Here had been supposed to be temporary. A few weeks. A reset. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into looks, tight smiles, sighs that followed me from room to room, whispers that stopped when I entered. I learned quickly how to be small, how to clean without being asked, how to eat less, how to make my presence feel like a favor. That morning before the fall, I'd overheard my aunt on the phone. "She's still here," she'd whispered, like I was a stain that wouldn't come out. "Her mother says she'll figure something out." She hadn't. And now my mother lay on the floor of a house she claimed I didn't belong in, surrounded by people who suddenly understood that this situation wasn't just uncomfortable. It was visible. As the paramedics lifted her onto the stretcher, her eyes finally found mine. Not pain. Not fear. Calculation. And in that look, I realized something important. She wasn't wondering if she was okay. She was wondering what I was going to say next. The hospital visit turned everything quiet in a way I didn't trust. My mother's injury wasn't life-threatening. A bad sprain. Some bruising. Enough pain to keep her in bed. Enough sympathy to fill the room. Enough attention to erase the question no one wanted to ask out loud. What really happened in that house? When they came back without her, the energy shifted. My aunt avoided my eyes. My uncle spoke to me like I might break. And for the first time since I arrived, they didn't tell me what to do. They didn't know how. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling fan spin shadows across the walls. I replayed the moment over and over. Not the fall, but the seconds before it. My mother's voice.
Calm. Sharp.
Certain. "Why is your daughter living in my home?" Not my home. Her home. That distinction mattered to her. It always had. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. The house creaked like it was holding its breath. On the counter sat my aunt's planner, open to the week. Appointments. Grocery lists. Notes written in neat ink.
There was nothing about me.
No plan. No timeline. No explanation for how long I was supposed to exist in their space. I went back to my room and pulled out my notebook, the one I'd been using for school. I flipped past math problems and half-finished essays and opened to a blank page. At the top, I wrote one word: record.
I didn't know why yet.
I just knew that everything that mattered always seemed to disappear the moment adults decided it was inconvenient. I started small.
Dates. Who said what?
Who avoided which conversations? I wrote down the exact words my mother used before I locked the bathroom door. I wrote how no one checked on me afterward. I wrote how my aunt cried for her sister, but never once asked how I was holding up. By the time I closed the notebook, my hands were steady. That was when it clicked. If I stayed quiet, they'd rewrite this. If I reacted emotionally, they'd dismiss me. But if I remembered everything, clearly, calmly, exactly as it happened, then I wouldn't be the problem anymore. I'd be the proof. My mother stayed in the hospital overnight. The next morning, my aunt received 3 calls she didn't answer, and one she did. I heard her voice from the hallway, tight, polite, pitched just high enough to sound cooperative. Yes, of course no. She's safe to where family. Family. That word had weight when it was useful and disappeared when it wasn't. By afternoon, someone knocked on the door. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. A woman stood on the porch holding a folder against her chest, her badge clipped neatly to her jacket. She smiled in a way that didn't ask permission. "I'm here to follow up," she said. Regarding last night, my aunt froze. They sat at the dining table while I stayed in the hallway, listening. The woman asked questions that didn't sound accusatory, but landed like they were measuring something invisible. How long has Elena been staying here? Is there a written agreement with her mother? Who is her legal guardian right now? Each answer came slower than the last. When the woman finally turned to me, her eyes were steady. Not suspicious. Not comforting. "Can you tell me what happened before the fall?" she asked. I thought about my notebook. About the word record. About how adults never believe feelings, but they respect details. So I didn't dramatize. I didn't cry. I repeated my mother's words exactly as she'd said them. The room changed. The woman nodded once and wrote something down. Then she asked another question, quiet, careful, surgical. "And how long have you felt unwelcome here?" I didn't answer right away. I opened my notebook and slid it across the table. She read, slowly, every page. When she finished, she closed it and looked at my aunt. "This situation isn't sustainable," she said calmly. "And it's already been noticed." That night, as my aunt sat on the couch staring at the TV without seeing it, I realized something chilling. I hadn't asked for help. Silence had done it for me. And once attention arrives, it doesn't leave empty-handed. My mother came home 2 days later with a soft brace on her ankle and a hard look in her eyes. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't even look at the stairs. She looked at the living room, the kitchen, the doors, at the people. "This is being taken out of context," she said, settling into a chair like she was reclaiming a throne. "You know how people talk." No one answered. She smiled thinly. "Do you realize how this looks?" There it was. Not "are you okay?" Not what happened. Just optics. Image. The story she'd tell if someone asked. "Family matters should stay private," she added, glancing at my aunt. "I never said you weren't welcome, Elena. You're twisting my words." I stood by the doorway, notebook tucked against my ribs. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be," she continued, voice syrupy now. "We gave you everything we could. You're too sensitive." Too sensitive. The phrase landed where it always did, right on the bruise she'd been pressing for years. I took a breath.
"Come in. Come out."
"You asked why I was living here," I said evenly. "You said it calmly. In front of everyone. That's not a feeling. That's a sentence." Her smile faltered. My uncle cleared his throat, then stopped. My aunt stared at the floor. Silence chose sides. My mother leaned forward. "You know how people twist things," she said. "We'll talk about this privately." I shook my head.
No.
Private is where words disappear. I finally set the notebook on the table. Not open, just present. Her eyes flicked to it, and for the first time since the fall, she didn't look angry. She looked afraid. because she wasn't scared of what happened. She was scared of who might hear it next. The meeting didn't end with shouting. That's what scared her the most. It ended with the woman from the department closing her folder and saying, "We need to clarify something before we move forward." My mother straightened. "Of course. We're cooperating." The word cooperating sounded rehearsed. "This isn't about blame," the woman continued calmly. "It's about responsibility. And right now, responsibility is unclear." Unclear. Another word my mother hated. She tried again. I was injured. Emotions were high. Things were misunderstood. I watched the room while she spoke. Not her. The room. My aunt's hands were clenched in her lap. My uncle hadn't looked at my mother once since the notebook hit the table. Even the air felt different, less forgiving. "Before you respond," the woman said, turning slightly toward me, "Elena, are you comfortable sharing what you wrote after the fall?" This was the moment my mother looked at me the way she used to when I was little, warning, quiet, sharp. I opened the notebook. Not dramatically. Not fast. I read the date.
The time.
Her exact words. The silence afterward. The way no one checked on me. The way I learned to make myself smaller so I wouldn't cause problems. When I finished, no one spoke. Then the woman asked my mother one question. "Can you explain why none of this was addressed before someone got hurt?" My mother opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. "We didn't think it was that serious." That was it. No justification. No explanation. Just the truth she'd been avoiding. The woman nodded once and wrote something down.
Slowly.
Deliberately. In that moment, I understood something powerful. My mother wasn't losing control because I spoke. She was losing control because everyone else stopped protecting her. And once a room decides to listen, there's no way to take the story back. The shift didn't happen all at once. It happened quietly, like a door closing in a house you've lived in your whole life, only this time it locks. The woman from the department didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She simply said, "For now, Elena will not be returning to unsupervised care under the current arrangement." My mother laughed once. A short, disbelieving sound. "You can't be serious." "I am," the woman replied. "This is temporary while we complete a full review." Temporary. That word finally broke something. My mother stood up too fast, wincing as she grabbed the back of a chair. "This is insane. I'm her mother." "And that's why this matters," the woman said evenly. No one rushed to defend her. No one softened it. My aunt didn't look relieved or angry, just tired. My uncle stared at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "You're all taking her side," my mother said, voice shaking now. "After everything I've done?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The woman slid a document across the table. Conditions. Supervision. Evaluations. Limits. Loss of control. Printed in black ink. "This isn't punishment," she said. "It's protection." My mother's eyes filled, not with guilt, but with shock. This wasn't the ending she'd rehearsed. There was no scene where she explained herself, and everyone nodded. No version where her authority restored itself. When she looked at me, it wasn't anger anymore. It was disbelief. Because she was finally realizing something terrifying. I hadn't ruined her life. I'd simply stopped carrying the weight of her choices for her. And once that weight shifts back where it belongs, it doesn't ask permission. We didn't leave in a rush. That surprised me. I'd always imagined moments like this would be loud. Arguments spilling into the street, someone chasing after me, shouting my name like they suddenly remembered it mattered. But instead, we walked out calmly.
Shoes on.
Notebook in my bag. The door closing behind us with a sound so ordinary it almost felt wrong. My mother stayed inside.
She didn't follow.
She didn't call out. For the first time in my life, she had nothing left to say that could change what was happening. Living somewhere else felt strange at first. Not unsafe, just unfamiliar in a quiet way. Mornings came with questions instead of assumptions. "Did you sleep okay? What do you want for breakfast?" No one praised me for being mature. No one expected me to disappear to make their life easier. And slowly, something inside me unknotted. There were supervised visits later. Short ones. Awkward ones. My mother spoke carefully then, like someone reading from a script she didn't believe in yet. Apologies floated around the room, soft and incomplete. I listened. I nodded. I didn't rush forgiveness. Because forgiveness, I learned, isn't something you give to make other people comfortable. It's something that happens after accountability. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the moment on the stairs. The words she said. The way I locked the bathroom door instead of answering. I don't replay the fall. I replay the choice. The choice to stop explaining myself. The choice to let the truth stand on its own. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push anyone. I just refused to carry a lie that wasn't mine. And that turned out to be enough. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, ask yourself something honestly. Is it really peace? Or just silence that protects the wrong person?